Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about a few of the books that have influenced me as a DM and a player in tabletop role-playing games. If you've been with us for a while on this channel, Dawn has talked about a number of the books that have influenced her, and I wanted to be able to do the same. But I realized when I started to think about it, it was kind of difficult because I didn't read a lot of fantasy books when I was growing up. So some of the stuff that Dawn talked about and that I read online and hear all of you talking about in some of your videos, I didn't read those until I was kind of in college and had already been gaming for a while. But there's definitely some that stand out. The first book that I have to talk about, and it's probably not a surprise, is the Dune series, Frank Herbert's Dune. It's a book that I absolutely love, and I used to read it every year. Now that's fallen away a little bit. I don't read it every single year, but I come back to it a lot. I give this book away as a gift to a lot of folks. It's just absolutely fascinating to me. It is probably one of, if not my favorite book series. And it's science fiction, and there's some mysticism that's in there. I don't know if you could really call it magic, but maybe if you wanted to, kind of. There's the intrigue. There's Paul Atreides as a hero, and he's in this world that he doesn't belong in, but he's fulfilling a prophecy, and he becomes a part of this world. There's all of the intrigue and very complex characters. I love in the book getting to learn so much about Duncan Idaho. I hope that in the upcoming new movie we get to see more of him. I like the games that the Empress is able to play, as she is incredibly smart and manipulates Fade Ruafo and all of those things. Fade Ruatha? I don't know. Somebody will correct me on his name. I like all of the different houses and the way that the Emperor tries to hold on to power. And the Fremen themselves have absolutely influenced some of the different types of characters I've built and societies that I've built as a DM or a world builder. It's absolutely awesome to me. And I love that idea of Paul is kind of a reluctant hero. He has it thrust upon him, and then he accepts it, and he goes on to greatness. Even though he's a deeply flawed character, a lot of these characters, a lot of the people in Dune are very flawed characters. But they're still really fun to watch and follow their story. So if I have to talk about a book that influences me as a player or as a game master, Dune is absolutely the place I have to start. Next on my list is Alexandre Dumas' The Three Musketeers. I really like this book. I love the story. I first watched the older movie when I was a kid, and I've seen a lot of the different interpretations of the films, and I do really enjoy coming back to the novelization. Well, not the novelization, the novel, the book, the original source material here. Similarly to Dune, one of the things I like about it is that you have this story of D'Artagnan, and he's from the country. You know, he isn't a courtier. He's not from that world. And then when he arrives in Paris and he is there to make his name and become a musketeer, and he gets to meet Athos and Porthos and Aramis, and he gets caught up in this world. He kind of doesn't belong, but he finds his footing, and he finds a family and a home and people that he cares about and that care about him. This book has so much intrigue and action. There's all of these fights, and you've got the different factions, all the way from Richelieu, who's trying to take power. There's a lot of court intrigue that's going on here. If you're going to run a 7th Sea campaign, do yourself a favor and read The Three Musketeers first. I promise it will absolutely help you as you build that campaign, as you build a story in that world. And I really like it. There's a lot of very careful planning and execution in these battles, and it's something that you can plug into a game like 7th Sea. Like I just said, it's easy to put it into your Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, but I think it even works in something like Shadowrun or Starfinder, your futuristic things. You can take these core elements And I guess for me, with these different books that influence me, that's what it is. It's the core elements of the story: intrigue, action, battle, the factions at war with each other, and these heroes that kind of don't belong, but eventually find their place. My third book is just a lot of different books. It's not any one thing, and it's because I read a lot of histories. I read a lot of different history books when I was growing up, and a lot of it was military history type stuff. I read a lot about what was going on with the different wars in England and between England and France, or England and Spain. A lot of the Viking stories, the things that were going on with Trajan and the Odyssey and the Iliad. A lot of these historical books. I know that the Odyssey and the Iliad aren't pure history, don't at me, but these sort of historical stories about the societies. And usually the way a lot of those stories, sometimes historical fiction, are presented is you have this one character that represents an entire group of people, which is problematic, sure. But a lot of the times it's a nice, fun way in, as well as just the straight up history. I love reading the history of the the Britons. I like reading the history of the different, tribes from Gaul. I liked the war between Gaul and Rome. A lot of that stuff. And along with histories, a lot of different mythologies that I would read. Roman mythology and Greek mythology. That was a huge part of my literature as a kid. I learned how to read on a book of Greek myths. My aunt gave me this book, and it was kind of the thing that I learned to read the best on. And so mythologies, as well as the history books that I read as a kid, it's, I think, where I learned to love building the societies that I do as a GM. I like putting together these different societies. I like coming up with the different citadels and strongholds and the armies and what do they look like and what ties them together and their different fighting styles. I attribute a lot of that to the history books and mythology books that I read growing up. And lastly, it's worth noting, not a book, but a movie that influenced me a lot, which is Lawrence of Arabia. And I think that's the one that encapsulates best what I talked about with Dune and Three Musketeers. And it's this idea from the film Lawrence of Arabia, A Stranger in a Strange Land. Again, Lawrence, Paul, and D'Artagnan, they're all these characters that they are outsiders. They don't belong where they are, and they are struggling to a certain degree, and struggling is fun. They're struggling to fit in and find their place, and they ultimately do. Most of my characters, that ends up being what they are, whether it is my long-running character that shows up in a lot of different games I play, Aquilane, who's almost always a drow. And doesn't belong in a world that he finds himself in. He's an outcast, and usually Aquilane ends up being an heir to one of the matron families. Or even now, I'm playing Storm. She's a tabaxi that isn't from the world we're playing in. She got here through a planar rift. A lot of my folks are this stranger in a strange land. It's something that I learned from that movie and the books that I read, and has stuck with me and influences a lot of my characters. So what books have you read that influence you? Whether that's as a player, the types of characters you like to play, their class, or the traits that you give them, or as a game master, whenever you're building a world, what are the books that you use as a guidepost for that? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. And hey, you'll probably give me a lot of stuff that I can then go and start reading. So in advance, thanks for giving me a reading list. If this is your first video, then welcome. You've got a homework assignment, so go do the reading. There'll be a quiz later. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. A big thanks to all of our patrons, and especially to Bryce. If you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page and check out the perks of being a patron. Until next time, I'm Ryan, and this is Roll for Initiative. Bye. Whether it's Storm, who I'm playing right now, a tabaxi from... Tabaxi? Let's say that word correctly.